At the end of 2024, I set a goal that I was gonna make $100,000 in 2025, and I just managed to hit that goal. I made $101,000 last year. In this video, I'm gonna be breaking down exactly where every dollar went, what I spent, what I saved, what I invested, what I paid the taxes to. If you're new here, which I'm guessing most of you are, my name's Josh. I'm 29 years old and I live in Los Angeles. I've been documenting my journey to financial freedom on this channel for the last year and a half now. So showing you guys everything, all my numbers, the good decisions, the bad decisions, everything in between. And I'm gonna be doing a lot more of that this year, hopefully. I'm kind of saying that now as a promise that I really hope that I'm gonna keep. Anyway, when it comes to how I make my money, the vast majority of my income comes from my full-time job. I'm an architectural designer and I make $100,000. Well, okay, so in 2025, I was making $92,000. I just got a new job where my salary is $100K. So last year, $92,000 was my base, and then with bonus and 401k match and a little bit of side income, I was able to make over $100,000. But yeah, it's good work. It pays really well, and I'm super happy to do it. A couple years ago, I actually made my first YouTube video on this channel a year and a half ago, and it was breaking down how I spent my $75,000 salary in 2023. So since then, I've obviously made a few salary jumps. In 2024, I went up to about 90K, and then in 2025 is where I crossed that six-figure mark. So today I'm gonna walk through exactly where that money went. I split everything into two buckets: what I paid myself, so investing, saving, and the money that I put into my side hustle / business. I'm also counting that as investing money that I paid myself. And then what I spent to live, so housing, transportation, groceries, travel, lifestyle expenses. Those are the two buckets that we're gonna be looking at. And well, and taxes too, but we're just gonna throw that at the end because man, that shit is not as fun as the other stuff. All right, let's get into it. So what I paid myself in 2025, I invested $26,233 in total. Of that money, about $9,400 went into my 401k. I had a 5% match at my old job, and I just started my new job. So I had that old job most of 2025, just for context. Either way, about half of that $9,400 is my contribution, the other half is my employer's contribution. Then I put about $8,300 into my Roth IRA. I had to finish maxing out my 2024 Roth IRA at the beginning of the year, and then I maxed out my 2025 as well. So that's where that money went. And then I put $5,000 into a real estate deal and $3,500 into my taxable brokerage account. Earlier in my 20s, when I was starting my journey to financial freedom, most of my money had to go towards debt and building up an emergency savings fund. So this was actually the first year, 2025 was, where I was coming into the year with no debt, and I had an emergency savings fund built, which was really nice because it meant that investing got to be the priority this year. Nothing complicated with my investments. Pretty much all my money went into the S&P 500. I had a small amount that went towards AI ETFs and a small amount that went towards bonds as well. And that's basically it. Savings, I saved $2,140 last year. This went right into my high yield savings account. And my savings goal in 2025 was to increase my emergency fund from 3 to 4 months to 6 months. I hit that goal, or I just about hit that goal, but then to fund that real estate investment, I took $5K out of my savings. So I currently have a solid 4-month emergency fund, but gonna be working over the next year to build that up to 6 months, just to give me a bit more cushion. The last area that I put into the pay myself category is the money that I spend on my business being this YouTube channel. It is not a profitable business yet, and it's not something that I put a ton of money into, but I spent $270 on my YouTube channel last year. This is just the money that goes towards editing, subscriptions, and my website. I got monetized back in the summer, so I've been making a little bit of money back from that, but I'm only making about $5 a month. So not even enough to get paid out yet from YouTube. I didn't include that in my income, but hopefully this year I'll be making some more videos, getting more consistent with it. And if it could pay for my expenses, like my business expenses, that would be great. It's not much. I think I can get there. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. So in total, I paid myself just under $29,000. That money went towards investing, building a larger emergency savings fund, and then covering those few little business expenses. And this is roughly 29% of my gross income, which my goal every year is to pay myself 25% of my gross income. So I more than accomplished that last year, which is awesome. Now on to the fun stuff, what I spent. Housing was the biggest category by far. I spent $16,562 on rent last year. I live in LA. I don't live alone, so thankfully I have a roommate that I split a 2-bed, 2-bath with, which makes things a lot cheaper, but it's still an expensive city to live in. Rent for me is about $1,400 a month. It wasn't that last year. It was a little bit lower, as you can see from the number, but that's my biggest cost, hands down, by like threefold. I spent $1,482 on bills. This includes things like utilities, internet, and my phone bill. Nothing too crazy here, but definitely adds up over the course of a year. Transportation cost me $41.95 last year. I don't have a car payment. I paid my car off a couple years ago, so this is just gas, insurance, maintenance, Ubers, the registration fee for my car, all that sort of stuff gets grouped into this category, along with parking tickets, which I get more than I'd like to admit in LA here. This category thankfully stays pretty stable year to year. I'm gonna start having to put a bit more money into it over the next couple years because my car is getting old, so I'm gonna have to start saving up for some maintenance. Groceries, I spent $4,313. This is just normal grocery spending. Generally pretty happy with this number, and I'm happy to spend more on it. I'm probably gonna spend more on it this year because I'm eating out less, which is great because I spent $5,300 on dining out last year. This is restaurants, takeout, and delivery. I count it all in one category. So some of this was very intentional, going out on dates, going out with friends, social meals. Some of this was absolutely just being lazy and ordering DoorDash because it was a long day at work and I don't feel like cooking. So that's the area, that latter part is what I really want to cut back on moving forward. I don't want to be doing those lazy DoorDash orders. I want to be ordering or going out for a social reason because there's something going on. There's something to celebrate. There's a friend in town. There's someone I want to catch up with. That's how I want to spend that dining out money. I don't really want to be ordering food while I'm just sitting my ass on the couch, you know? Health and wellness, I spent $28.72 on. That's my gym membership, and then also any other like fitness and health related costs. So supplements, any sort of hygiene, skincare products, that all goes into this category. This is another category that I hope to continue increasing as I make more money. I want to continue investing more and more in my health. Travel is my favorite category to spend on. I spent $5,200 on travel last year. This was mostly trips to go home and see my family from the East Coast, but I live in LA, so I've got to get back for the holidays, and I like to try to get back over the summer as well. So I took 3 trips, 2 to go see my girlfriend's family, and then 1 to go see my family. And then I took 2 personal trips as well, 1 to Miami and 1 to Mexico. So that all adds up, and this is an area where the money is very well spent. I get a lot of value out of travel, so I want to continue increasing this every year as I'm making more money. Getting towards the end here, I swear we got like 4 or 5 more categories. I'm gonna try to breeze through them because I know at this point in the video, you're probably like, man, I don't give a fuck. Just wrap the video up so I can go click on the next one. Anyway, home, I spent $1,500 on my home. I moved into a new apartment, so I just had to get some more furniture for it. Some years this is higher than others. It really just depends on whether I move or make any big upgrades. So yeah, happy with that. No real problems with how much I spent on my place this year. I got everything off Facebook Marketplace, like as cheap as I could, but also had to furnish an entire apartment. Experiences, I spent $1,300 on experiences. This is stuff like events, activities, experiences with friends that aren't eating out, going to the bars or traveling. Again, this is always money well spent. I'm super happy with this and would love to spend more on that. Gifts, I spent $1,287 on gifts. This is mostly just like birthday and Christmas gifts, but I also did a little bit of donating and want to do more of that over the next year. Subscriptions, I spent $1,126 on streaming services, apps, and various other recurring subscriptions that I have. I've gotten a lot better at going through my finances and cutting the ones out that I don't really use, but I'd still like to get this down closer to $500. I'm gonna try to cut it in half this year. Coffee, I spent $937 on. This is just coffee shops, cafes, occasional pastry. I love going and working at coffee shops, but I also just love coffee. So I'm happy to spend this money. This is actually the least amount of money that I spent on coffee in the last like 4 years probably. So that's great, but I'm probably gonna end up spending more on coffee this year because I'm working remote now as opposed to being in the office. Going out, I spent a little over $1,000 on bars, drinks, nights out with friends, anything social that isn't dining out or an experience. Not mad at this category, but it's an easy one to let creep up if I'm not paying attention. So I do want to make sure that this kind of stays in that range moving forward. It's not something that I get a lot of value from, so it's not an area where I want to spend a ton. Clothes, I spent $1,000. This one varies year to year just based on if I need any sort of clothes. Like if I need to get a suit, then that year's going to be more expensive. This year was pretty low key, just, you know, bought some basics, bought some shoes, but overall I'm pretty comfortable with this number. And then last but not least, miscellaneous spending. This is just, you know, Amazon orders, random one-off purchases that I don't quite know how to categorize. I spent just under $900 on that stuff. Not necessarily bad spending, but I do want to get better at tracking it so that this category just doesn't exist in the future. And so that brings my total spending to $49,000 in 2025, which is just under 50% of my income, which is not bad. You know, we're pretty happy with that. And then there's taxes. In total, I paid $23,000 in taxes. That means out of the $100,000 that I earned, almost a quarter of it was gone before I could do anything with it. And so to give you the full picture before we wrap up here, I made $101,000. I spent $49,000. I saved and invested $29,000, and then taxes took $23,000. That's everything. That's full transparency. Going into next year, my goal is to continue to increase my income. I want to make $110,000 next year, this year. And so I am close to on track to do that. With just my full-time job, I'll bring in about $105,000, I believe. So I've got to find a way to pull together another $5,000. I'll make a little bit off of interest and dividend income, but I'm not quite sure where the rest of that's going to come from yet. I'm working on some things, but we'll talk more about that later. I also want to continue to invest 25% of my income, on track to do that as well. I want to continue to spend money on things that bring me value, like travel and health and experiences. And then I want to be a lot more consistent on this channel. I know that's not really a financial goal, but it is in a sense. Like, I'm keeping myself accountable by showing up and making these YouTube videos. So if you're nosy like me and you want to follow someone else's financial journey, please go ahead and hit subscribe. Helps the channel out a ton. Not that I need, no, whatever. Like, I'm just doing this shit for fun, and I hope you get some value out of it. So subscribe if you want to. Don't subscribe if you don't want to. I don't know. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.